Hey guys, I'm going to continue with my recollections and my memory with my dad's story because honestly, this is the golden age of everybody. And in your late teenagers and early adulthood, from James Dean, let's say, and who's like a paradigm of the rebel without a cause, and this is just where it is because at the time, you know, China is almost divided into two worlds. So people from Shanghai or the largest cities got sent to countries. It's like sending you to a real third world, if that's where you use the term stuff. So they are unwillingly got sent over there, and then felt like being exiled basically. And so they didn't really get along with the peasants, everything, but they're forced to be there. And this is why, and I started a conversation with my dad about that he has so much sympathy for the American soldiers in Vietnam, which is actually the same time too. And then he saw Rambo: First Blood, and then he was just like that. That's exactly what he felt. So they're forced to send over there, and they didn't get along, so they didn't do well farm works, and they're just getting by. And then see you send a whole bunch of urban late teenagers or early youth over there. So he was telling me a lot of funny things about, which is, now you think, it's, to me it sounds so romantic, and maybe there's could be a plot line of some movies in there. um there is actually a lot of entertainment productions revolving that theme. Um, but what I'm telling you is the real deal. So they are like, they could, if they could, they could cop some of their chickens and steal some eggs, and then a whole bunch of them get together. It's always there will be cliques forming, or even gangs later on. So it's always the Shanghai dudes and girls, and they mingle together. So they got a bunch of those stuff, and then always the girls doing the cooking. Um, and you probably don't even have an idea about how their stove work. Remember, there is no modern utility, so it's pretty much like very primitive, like medieval times. And that's what it is that there's only one huge stove, and one person has to do feeding the raw material to make the fire, while the other person could do cooking. um, there's only one stove. That stove served everything. So basically, he was telling me that if you use that stove, and then how are you gonna wash those things? And after you washed, and if you got some eggs, let's say you make a egg noodle, let's say, and then you got chickens, and then you use the same stove to boil hot waters. Remember, there's no ready waters, and it's all from the river or from the well. And so that also took a lot of time and took a lot of energy to do all of those stuff. But they still had a good time together. And at one point, this is what he revealed to me, which is pretty outrageous even to today's standard. He had an affair with a girl, which is kind of normal, right? And then for some time that they broke up. Just probably maybe maybe my dad got tired of her or something. Just and then she got so pissed, and then she used a huge bowl of water, cold water, and then just splashed on his bed. and, that's pretty outrageous even today's standards. So that was also one thing. And also, speaking of which, and so after all, they still need to get along with the locals, right? Because even though the locals are kind of like looking, you guys are kind of different. Just see, this is why he was intimating about the fact that why he so sympathized with U.S. soldier with the local Vietnamese, and that really looks similar. See that situation, the Shanghai dudes and girls always dress kind of different. They look different. I mean, their skins, everything. I mean, the locals. When he tell me that the local women, the married women, will all be topless during summer times, and I even have pictures. And this is true. All the kids were all naked during summer times, of course. And then he was saying that during the winter times that he saw these girls that was chewing things. So he was like, "What are you guys chewing?" And they're like they're chewing a little piece of ice. So my dad said that he's got some candies or stuff, and let's say he still keep a habit of how he live. Like his house is clean, everything. Well, pretty clean, cleaner than mine. No, I mean tidy. Every day he would use some lotion for the face, and so the loco you can definitely tell the difference. And then the loco had a habit of squatting, and then because we don't do that, I never did. I don't do that. I would never do that. So what it is that when they smoke cigarettes, remember at the time there's no cigarette butt. There's no filter. So basically that there was smoke. Everybody smokes at the time. So they smoke, and then I mean my dad's and his buddy. Uh, they smoke, and then they just toss on the floors, and because they will sweep every day. So when they smoke, because it's dirt ground, so the locals will come in here, will be like picking up these leftover cigarette butts, and then all together they're torn up, and I don't know how they did it, and then they probably will put into like a pipe, like a iron pipe, like a long pipe, and then they could keep on smoking the leftover tobaccos, which if you gather a lot, you make a new pipe, things like that, or maybe they roll it with some torn up newspapers. So that was also pretty interesting. So and what young people do is that they got into a lot of fights. so especially my dad because he wear glasses just like me. So he tend to avoid a lot, but not all of it. But that his buddy, who's his roommate, and what he was telling me that his buddy was a real good fighter, and from the few photographs that I can see, it looks like it. And then he also said that his buddy is flandering with uh, uh, just always had different girls. So his buddy usually is always oftentimes he's not home, but his buddies give him a lot of respect, and because at the time and that knowing where he come from, and because there's always a respect for someone intellectual. So that was where it is, and so there's just countless anecdotes about that lost period of time that they millions of them that invested um, their youth in there in that piece of land, and then according to my dad, And this is, I think, it's definitely true. And the peasants were still, some of the peasants could still talking to him, and then they're telling him that back in the olden days, before commune system, and then they're like, the landlords are treating them really well, and during harvest seasons, the busy seasons, and even they were saying the landlords will go work with them too, and then what they would spend money to cut meat to feed everybody, and that ain't gonna happen anymore. And then there's local anecdotes. I don't even know I should talk about this like in the middle of the night, but this is like local legends, and what they say that during what kept on mentioning about the Great Leap Forward, which is a total famine, and their whole country was like wiped out, and then everybody died. So the legend goes that there will be starving ghosts roaming around in the middle of the night. And so one time that he and my buddy was not he and his buddy was at some place that they were probably doing some work at some other places, and that in the middle of the night that you're still afraid of. See, I'm not superstitious, but when you're in that situation, and what he described to me is called as the silence of death. It's that silent, and obviously there's a term called you hold out your hands that uh, you hold out your hands in the dark. You couldn't even see your hand. So they went to bed, and then they say in the middle of the night they start to hear things in their the kitchen area where they have a shelf where you store leftover food or something. So the legend goes that uh, and his buddy was like freaking out, and then he just took his shoes and then started to throw at the shelf. But my rational guess is that it might be mouse. But he was so afraid, and then he thought that there was a starving ghost roaming around, and the legend goes that they don't hurt people, but and then maybe he got too superstitious, and then the next morning that he woke up and he said there's something wrong with his junk. so, so that was so funny. So many story that we haven't laughed about, but it's actually pretty deplorable and pretty miserable, very very miserable. And then the good thing that because my dad had a shtick, and so he can paint, and so nobody else knows, well, what the hell's painting, and so they give him a lot of leeways, and so he paint a lot, and then ultimately that, and to local peasants, they don't understand what is a painter, that you're with um all your gears, and then you went out to paint landscapes and stuff, and that's how he met my mom. And that's how I'm here, basically. um yeah, they according to another friend who knew them, and he went out to the paint, and then to this school. At the time my mom was even a school teacher, a elementary school teacher. So 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 she taught elementary. That's all, pretty much what the peasants needs, and so just some fundamental basics. So that's how they met, and then they said they just met in the morning, and they went out dating in the afternoon, and the rest is history. And I just felt like that was, now it sounds, to me at least, it sounds really romantic. It sounds bucolic. It even sounds ideal. So to the point that I want to share with you guys because these so-called legends are just a bygone era. That's what I was trying to say, and just because today everybody's text messages, and so none of these will happen anymore. So yeah, just to share with you guys, and thank you for watching. I'll keep you posted.